What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Down to Earth with me, Kristian Harloff. All right, so you guys know I've been doing this about a year and a half now, and when I started on the other channel, one of the ways that I got into this, when I started to watch that documentary, I was on National Geographic about UFOs exploring the unknown, and one of the really strong voices inside of that was my next guest. And then when I really started asking questions, my friend Attack Peter, who you know, was like, have you seen the phenomenon? Have you seen Moment of Contact? I was like, no, I haven't. And I did, and I just like eating them up, watching them. And then I started watching more interviews with this guy. I saw him on Rogan. I started following him on Twitter and looking at how strong of a voice he has and what he's been trying to do for the community in general. And at one point, about a year and a half ago, I reached out to him, and he was very welcoming with his time. And he said, I'd love to do it. I'm working on something. I'm doing something. And when it's time, I'd love to do the show. Well, he has something, and people know about it. I'm talking about James Fox, and I'm talking about his new documentary on the subject. And, of course, is the program. I had a chance to check it out. And joining me today is the director himself, Mr. James Fox. Hey, James, how you doing?
Hey, thanks so much for the lovely intro and having me on the show.
Oh, man, you deserve it. I've been excited to talk to you, and it was funny because I told people yesterday, I always try to hold my announcements of who I have because, sometimes things fall through. But yes,
I know how that goes.
Yeah, you do. And so I said yesterday, I was like, you know what, the hell with it. It's a day beforehand. I told the audience, and they're like, well, good. I know that's one of the ones you wanted, because I had Timothy Gallaudet on not too long ago. And when I had him on, I had asked him way before he was on at the hearing if he was going to testify. And without seconds, he was like, yeah, I would testify. So I actually wanted to start with that with you, because I don't really think I've heard your opinion on it yet. Jeremy Corbell was out recently talking about how he thought this recent hearing was dishonest. And I ask you your thoughts about it, because you cover both of the hearings in your new movie. You cover the one in 2022, you cover the one in 2023, and obviously by the time this came out, the new one hadn't even happened yet. What were your overall thoughts of what we just saw a couple of weeks ago?
Well, so that was the first time I've actually attended congressional hearings, and I want to thank Michael Schellenberger for the invitation. It was an honor and a pleasure just to be there, listening to a joint member of lawmakers, both Republicans and Democrats, being civil with one another and talking about UFOs, or UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, was incredible. That in itself was incredible. And I have to remind people that despite the fact that some people may interpret it as a big nothing burger, or perhaps nothing new was revealed, you had former military and intel officials testifying under oath that the phenomenon was real and that there is a crash retrieval program. That's kind of a big deal. Even if you just take that one little element out of that congressional hearing, it was a big deal. Now, according to Schellenberger, I guess there was some confusion as to the original origin from the individual claiming, the whistleblower claiming Immaculate Constellation, the existence of that. I guess he put together a document to be handed over to Congress. Whether that document was handed to Mace from Corbell or whether from Michael Schellenberger, I think is kind of beside the point. The document came from the whistleblower, and it talks about the existence of what we've all kind of suspected, and that is a body of much more compelling data that's being held secretly from the general public. So that, as far as I know, was the only real kind of mishap that took place. But maybe I missed something.
Yeah, I think he meant more so with the overall tone of it, where it seemed like because when that second hearing, I got the one with David Grush, when that happened, there were so many groundbreaking things that had happened and that were talked about in the way that it seemed that each person who was asking the questions, from Burchett to AOC to whoever it was asking in a particular way that it seemed like they were really trying to get to the bottom of it. There were a couple of times, and I think Luna was still part of that in this new hearing, that seemed like she was trying to get to the bottom of it. It seemed a little bit almost like, I don't think circus is the right word, but it seemed almost like theater at some points, to where I don't trust politicians. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't. I think that there are some that you are speaking to that I think legitimately want to get to the bottom of this. I think that that doesn't take away from the fact that they also know that this is a spotlight maybe on them that they didn't have beforehand. And it's not easy to get that spotlight on them. And now they have that and they're using it to their advantage. So I don't know. That's what I think some people felt inside of that hearing.
Yeah. Well, what I really appreciate, regardless of your politics, one of the people, and I've met a number of politicians from both sides, and Tim Burchett is one of the most genuine human beings you could ever meet. I was skateboarding the halls of Congress at 10 o'clock at night after an interview with him, and he found out that he was going to. We had a second interview lined up just a few months ago, and Congress got out a little early, and he was flying back to Tennessee, and I was like, God, I drove all this way, and he like stopped everything, met with me in the evening, gave me the interview. He's so wholesome and real. Like when you meet the guy, you can't not like love the guy. It's kind of like the Bernie Sanders of the right. You've got Bernie on the left. Even people on the right love Bernie. It's like, hey, I don't agree necessarily with his politics, but the guy's great and he's sincere, and I believe that. And I feel the same way about Tim Burchett. He's so genuine and so kind. 1 minute with the guy, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you can feel his while you can feel his frustrations, and his honesty does come out when he's talking about a lot of things. Sometimes when I'll agree with what he's saying, and sometimes like, come on, Tim, but you can't accuse a guy of not saying what's on his mind. But with all of that, and one of the things that he just talked about, and I should get your opinion on this too. What do you think is going on with all of these drones, orbs, whatever they might be, flying over New Jersey?
Well, it's funny. I had a buddy of mine that actually came to Brazil with me a couple of years ago, Alessandro, and he's like, dude, I live in New Jersey. This is happening in my home. I'm watching these things. I was like, really?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, I got video footage of them. I said, well, tell me, like, what are you seeing? And he goes, there's the size of an SUV, and they make a lot of noise. I was like, they make a lot of noise.
Right.
He goes, they're hovering night after night. They have a long loiter time. Over 2 hours, possibly longer.
Yeah.
I fly drones. I fly pretty high-end drones. And I'm lucky to get 25 minutes flight time. So these seem to be really sophisticated, high-end. I've even heard reports where they're scrambling F-16s. I have not put boots on the ground. I have not gone and personally spoken to residents in the area, military officers for the incursions that have happened over the base, military bases. I have not done that. So I'm not speaking from a place of having done the necessary research to draw any definitive conclusions. But some of the people that I have spoken to, and the videos that I have seen, don't allow me to quickly eliminate a conventional type of propulsion. Advanced, yes. Conventional I can't eliminate conventional. Let's put it that way.
I feel the same, and I think that what you cover a lot in your new movie is that from a lot of these reports, the particular events that you cover, most of them no sound. They don't do anything. So and I kind of heard you emphasize that when you were talking about it with your friend just now. You're saying that it's this thing is hovering and making a lot of noise, and right away the bells go off, like, a lot of noise. Maybe not the ones that that I've been covering. So diving into this, I think that it's similar to me of what you were talking about with the hearing too. I think this is going to be so important for people, this movie, because I feel one of the main reasons I started doing what I'm doing is because I think that it's such a sham that people aren't covering this topic more in the mainstream media. They're covering it a lot. These drones, they're covering it everywhere right now. But the hearings, you said it brilliantly before. It's like, this is something that we're talking about, a reverse engineering program. We're talking about all these things. How it's not the leading story. You just take six people. You don't have to. They don't all have to agree on this. They don't have to agree that they believe in it. But how do you not get people, almost like a old school crossfire thing, going, hey, this happened. They talked about a reverse engineering program. Michael Schellenberger broke this thing. I don't believe it. I do believe it. What say you? Go. There's none of that happening. And do you think that's going to start to happen more?
I certainly hope so. And I really try with every body of work that I create. I'm always thinking that about that skeptic in the crowd, right? Obviously, you know, can I prove there's a crash retrieval program without that solid bit of, you know, evidence, a craft, a body? No, I can't. Can I create? Can I put forth a body of evidence that would sway a jury? That you know, obviously, there's no smoke without fire. I think that we've done that with the program and enough. I'm always thinking about how do I put forth a body of evidence for mainstream to understand what's kind of going on, right? So I took basically the last several years, condensed it down, you know, bite-sized chunks, and highlighted some of the more significant aspects of what's taken place. And you know, you've got real government officials talking about this alleged crash retrieval program. I mean, there's a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't just believe it because David Grush testified as to its existence under oath to members of Congress, which I think there's prison time for lying to Congress under oath, potentially. Right.
Yeah.
So that's something. I believe it because it aligns with my 30 years of research in the field. I mean, I've looked extensively into the Roswell case. I was investigating Roswell back in the early 90s. I got to meet with people that handled that debris, particularly Jesse Marcel's, you know, son. As you know, I did a film on an alleged crash case that happened in 1996 in Varginha, Brazil. I spent 12 years on and off, boots on the ground in that case, talking to witnesses that drove aliens around, that saw the crash site. You know, and then it was even revealed one of my last visits from one of the control officers, the air traffic control officers, that he saw the United States Air Force plane come in and pick up some of the debris and bodies and fly back to the United States. So that's where my head was at, even before the second congressional hearings that happened with David Grush in 2023. So anyway, I just wanted to it was kind of personal for me, but I wanted to create a film that, you know, people like you and I could show our skeptical brother, sister, mother, father, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's really something going on here. Listen to these officials testifying in open congressional hearings. This is really compelling. Like, there are consequences for lying under oath to Congress. Like, what's going on here? Well, this deserves support.
It does. And I'll think, look, so in 2017, when the New York Times article came out, like, and you covered this in the film, that's when I think the lid kind of blew off and people went, oh, wait, this is actually real in the sky. That happened to me. I was on a show called Collider Live, and we covered that story because we heard the New York Times thing, and, you know, and it was mostly pop culture stuff is what I covered, but I was like, we gotta talk about this. It's like, and we covered that story. And then, to be honest, I was always interested in this stuff. I was always curious about it. But for a while, there was not a lot of that mainstream stuff. So I stopped really paying attention, to be completely honest. And then it was that documentary I mentioned in your intro that I was sitting on the couch one night, and I don't remember what I was watching before that. And that popped up as an ad, the Exploring the Unknown. And my first thought was, what is this? One of these like History Channel, Ancient Aliens things. And when I watched it, it was like basically what you just said you want to do for the mainstream. That's what that particular doc did for me, because I wasn't just thinking this was a sci-fi aliens thing. I'm now listening to people in the military and others talking about these, and I was like, wait a minute. I'd never heard any of these stories before. And then I watched your documentaries, and I was like, holy shit, like the people that you're talking to, and it started to get more and more real for me. And that's why I was like, why aren't people covering this? And then I started covering. So my friend, who's really into a lot of like very, very political, and keeps asking me questions about this because he doesn't really know what to believe. And I said, look, I'm going to send you something. And then once it's able to, I can send it out to everybody, I'm going to send it to him. So I think that's a great way to do it. But I have to tell you, James, there were a couple of times though, when you were talking to the NASA, when you were showing the NASA guy, that I wanted to take my head and slam it into the fucking. It's like,
you know what?
Yeah.
Revenge is a platter best served cold. I got revenge in the edit room with him.
You did. You did. You certainly did. But
I thought about that very carefully for months.
Yeah,
I was boiling over with frustration when that happened.
So for people who don't know, James talked to the head of NASA. He was talking about, and it was the most frustrating part about it for me. And you cut it very well into showing like he says one thing and clearly it's contradicted by the
screen
truth.
with David Grush testifying under oath.
Beautiful,
right?
Yeah, that was my favorite part. It was like because as he's talking, he's like, well, David Grush, is that the guy who says he's got a friend that did this? Like, no, sir.
He's got an alien in a box in a warehouse somewhere. I'm like, are you kidding me?
But as funny, as stupid as that sounds, that's who's running the show. And like,
I know. I was livid.
Yes.
When that happened. Look, if he would have said, hey, look, he's got his own UAP investigation underway with NASA, right? Hey, we take these allegations seriously. This is clearly a credible, allegation, and we're in the process of running this down, and we'll report back. Okay, fine, fair enough. But for him to do a hit job on Grush, that's what that was.
Yeah, it was also.
Because I remember thinking, no, wait a minute here. You're in the process of investigating UAP. You foolishly made the decision not to have access to classified material, which why on earth would you do that, right? Like, hello. And then when, David Grush, an intelligence officer, a high-level intelligence officer with all the clearances, who was put in charge to go and investigate this stuff, comes forward and says, hey, here's what I found, to do a hatchet job on the guy. Oh, man, I was like,
yeah,
I don't know, man.
No, it to me, it seemed what was more head scratching is that it seems, and this doesn't just happen with NASA, it happens with Congress, it happens with, it's like the people who are really investigating this don't seem to be as informed as they should be, right? Like, because same thing, even when all that stuff happened and Arrow spoke out and Sean Kirkpatrick, was talking. And the thing with that was that this is Arrow. They're supposed to be the people who are talking to the whistleblowers and finding out the information for the government. And yet you get the head or the former head blasting this guy on LinkedIn. And it's like, how can we take you serious when you're doing that, when you could say exactly what you just said? It's like, look, we have investigated. We would love to hear what this person said, and we would love to hear more about it. I can't confirm or deny what he's saying because I don't know. But instead, it made it seem like, no, don't listen to him. He's lying. How do you take a person like that serious?
Or how about when they make these definitive statements about what it isn't, when they don't know what it is?
Right. And you asked that. You asked that in the doc, which I love, which is like, well, what's your plan if it turns out that, and you didn't let him get away with not answering?
No, I did not.
I love that.
No, I did not.
That was great.
I kept it going. And there was a police officer in that room. And when I came in, I had it. Oh my God. Because I'm not press, right? I'm independent. I had this old press pass from like 2010. I looked like I was like 30. I had no gray hair, a little baby face, and I had this little press. It expired like 6 years ago.
And they still didn't.
And I had this, but I was like, I was hoping that no one was going to grab it and take a close look at it, right? It was just on my, and this police officer kept he had a gun. I kept noticing he had a gun. It was security. He kept going, well, who are you with? And I'm trying to get through security to get into the press conference. And I'm like, this guy is sweating me. I remember thinking he felt like my shadow. I was laughing because I was focused on getting through security, and I had to go through all the metal detectors and all that stuff. We had tripods and cameras and all that gear.
Yeah.
There was a crew of three or four of us. And so I was like passing stuff to the security folks. They're taking it to the metal detector. But there's this guy, he kept bombarding me with questions. And I got through the other side, and he's like, well, what's your name? I'm like, who are you with? And I was just like, I'm James Fox. I should be on the thing. And he goes, yeah, but what organization are you with? And I just go, I'm independent. And he's like looking at my thing. And he just didn't want me in there. And then the woman who had the roster goes, James Fox is on the list. He's on the list. And thank God to one of the former Politico writers who got me on that list, got me in there because, and so when I kept hammering the head of NASA in the press conference, I could see him looking at me. So I felt I wanted to be respectful.
Yeah.
but I didn't want to get him off the hook, you know?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah, but it was
so Nelson, so I kept looking over the corner of my eye. I kept seeing him kind of looking at me.
yeah, hilarious. And he's like, I knew it. My instincts are right. I shouldn't have let that guy in.
Hold out of there.
Yeah.
And I bet you at one point they might have even texted, that's James Fox asking.
Yeah, and he says, and he's shaking his fist, going, I knew it.
I was like the last guy that he wanted in there.
Yeah, well, you made it in. Don't BS me. You know as well as I do, wearing nice pants stinks. Who came up with the plan and said, hey, let's get some uncomfortable fabrics, squeezing your family jewels, and that is how you're going to look sharp? I'm going to give you an early holiday gift, and this is from me to you. The days are over. Public Rec's Daymaker pants, they're here to make sure you stay comfy and classy this season. They feel like your favorite sweats, but they're tailored pants. Super stretchy with an elastic waistband so you can rock them anywhere. Doesn't matter. You're going to work, you're going to hang out with your friends, they got you covered. Give the gift of comfort to someone that you love this season with Public Rec's Daymaker pants. And for a limited time only, you can get 20% off your entire order. You got to use that code DTE at publicrec.com. That is 20% off when you use that code DTE at publicrec.com. This morning, I was looking in the mirror. I go, these look damn good. I look slick. Anyway, go there, check it out, and you'll thank me later. Okay, it's time for me to gush over Via. It's that time of the show. This holiday season, you have to unwind, recharge with Via. It doesn't matter if you're enjoying a quiet evening at home or embracing the festive cheer. Via's premium THC and THC-free gummies will help you find your perfect holiday balance. They are renowned for their award-winning THC and THC-free gummies, THC flower soothing topicals, and calming drops. They're all crafted with the highest quality hemp sourced from trusted, independently owned American farms. Best part, legally shipped to nearly all states in the U.S. in discreet packaging directly to your door with a worry-free guarantee. No medical card required. If you've been following me, you've heard me raving about Via whenever I can. I love Via. Favorite one? Probably the sleep one, the dreams one, right there. I love it. It's great. It's so convenient. It's made in the USA. It's award-winning service, quality ingredients. It's affordable, accessible. This holiday season, gift yourself some peace of mind. If you are 21 and over, you check out the link to Via in our description. You use that code DTE. You receive 15% off, and then you're going to purchase. You're going to ask you where you heard about them. Well, you support our show, and you tell them that we sent you. This holiday season, enhance your everyday with Via. They are the best. And even when we'll start with the journey of it, because I know you went through a lot of shit to get this one done. Because
that's putting it mildly.
Tell me a little bit about the everything that kind of went down in the lead up to making this film.
So there were two things that were happening. So I, and also it was kind of personal for me, the program, because I had just, done the phenomenon, right? And the phenomenon talks a little bit about potential crash retrieval materials, but it doesn't really go do a deep dive at all into that level of inquiry. But then I did Moment of Contact, right? And so you have a perfect case, modern case, relatively modern case, not like Roswell, where the vast majority of witnesses are still alive, right? So I did that. So I'm wanting to know about the connection with the United States and, an alleged crash retrieval program, right? And I was really excited about going from covering that angle within government in the United States of finally, for the first time in almost 30 years, to have the opportunity to speak to city members of Congress about, do we have a crash retrieval program?
Right.
What are you guys learning? Right. It's very exciting. So as I was starting to transition over from Moment of Contact into this new film, and it was all hands on deck, my distributor stopped paying me. Like, I went doing business with one distributor that was purchased, unbeknownst to me, by a much larger company. And, so I make my living. I've got all my films either directly or indirectly with this distribution company, and they stopped paying. And I'm freaking out because I'm making, you have like 4 or 5 really good months when a film comes out where you can recoup your investment. I mean, usually I'm 6, 7, 8. 100. In the case of the phenomenon, I was 1.2 million in debt. With this case, with this new film, I'm $1 million in debt because I didn't make any money. I had to borrow a bunch of money, but they stopped paying me. And it was like, oh, Mr. Fox, don't worry. We're just, we got acquired by a bigger company. There's just like a little moment of adjustment period where we get the accounting on board with what, I was like, okay, I'm not liking this feeling right now, right. And this happened, and month after month after month after month, I'm seeing the sales reports and I'm not getting any money. And now I'm borrowing money, and I haven't even paid back all the money I owed on Moment of Contact. Because remember, I was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for that.
Yeah.
So that's happening. And then there's another individual who is producing the documentary, who will remain nameless, he's saying that he made the phenomenon and telling all these people not to meet with me. And I'm having to send production stills of me in China and Australia and Africa and with Senator Harry Reid to staff members of certain congressional folks, these photographs to prove, no, I was the one that made the phenomenon, right? Mm-hmm. And then all these intel folks that I was trying to get access to were told not to meet with me. And Christopher Mellon, thank you, Mr. Mellon, stood up for me and set the record straight. So I was fighting that. It really felt like somebody was just trying to extinguish my career. Like, yeah. I was like, I remember I just like the level of stress, like when all your money's cut off, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
I'm sure.
Particularly right at a time when, your film is making money. Cause again, it's usually the first 4 months where you make the vast majority, 75% of what you're making. And then money trickles in and it supports you to cover. But, I have to pay back a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars at the end of every production. Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot on the trailer. I spent a lot on the sound design and editing, shooting, blah, blah, blah. So I was dealing with all of those things during the making of the program. And I remember at times when I'd go to sleep at night, I'd had to have a whiskey because the stress was so intense. And I was just staring at the ceiling, just going like, I've never felt this before. It felt like someone was just trying to extinguish me.
Did it feel nefarious in that way?
It did feel nefarious. Was it? I don't know. Could it have been a coincidence? It certainly could have been, but damn it, felt like somebody was trying to take me out. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And it was like, so I was dealing with that. So I literally, thank God, I have a couple of friends where I literally was borrowing money to cover expenses. I couldn't afford to pay one of my executive producers back. And I said, hey, buddy, I'm really sorry. I'm just getting completely screwed here. And trying to give you the truncated version because it's such a long story. But ultimately what it came down to is I launched a lawsuit against the company. And after several months, my lawyer, really great guy, Jesse, he calls me up and he goes, look, James, I'd love to keep taking your money, but I'm telling you, I'm looking at their financials and I'm seeing where this is headed. They're going to declare bankruptcy and all their assets are going to be in the hands of a hostile takeover of another company, their assets being your assets. So all your movies will be gone for the foreseeable future and you'll have no leverage to get your movies back and your money will be gone and you're going to owe me a bunch of money suing them. They've got a bank of lawyers on payroll. So my advice to you is, painful as it is, take the lottery money that they owe you, forget about it, get your rights back immediately, which is the only way I can get my rights back. Because you think like the company stops paying, breach of contract, you just automatically get your rights back? Nope, doesn't work that way. You have to literally get the company that you signed with. And now, so I signed with 1091, but 1091 is owned by another company now, right? So now that company owns my rights and they have to reach out to the various platforms that it's on, lots of platforms, with their legal department, relinquishing interest and giving it back to me, right? But they're not going to do that. And the only way they're going to do that is if I give up the lawsuit and give them all my money.
And right. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I had to do.
Right.
It was the toughest decision I'd ever had to make. Remember the lawyer goes, James, I need you to acknowledge that you're never going to get this money back. He goes, you understand that, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I understand.
You get your movies back.
He goes, I need you to respond to the email that you acknowledge that you understand that.
Yeah.
You're never getting that money. It's gone forever. I was like, okay. That was the most painful. I mean, I remember that when I made the decision, I didn't know what else to do, man. I had to play the game on the board, not the one in my head.
Right, but I guess the way that you can kind of justify that too is that, you know, you got your kids back.
I got my kids back. Yeah, I was absolutely screwed without my kids back.
Yeah.
I had to get my kids back.
Yeah.
But I was like penniless. And then I signed with a new distribution company, and then they went belly up, and I never got a dime from that. I haven't received a dime in royalties since May 15th, 2023.
Wow. Well, I mean, you
unbelievable.
Know, but I'll tell you the reason why this also relates to, it also looks like, and you cover this in the movie, this also reminds me, it reminds me of what the whistleblowers are going through. It reminds me in the fact that the whistleblowers, like I was listening to, and this is going back to the most recent hearing, I knew leading up to it that we weren't going to be getting the type of hearing that everyone expected when I heard James Lukatsky's interview. Lukatsky said, all right, there's nothing that's really going to happen here because these whistleblowers, they're not protected. They can't say anything. They said, are you gonna testify? He's like, no. He's like, there's nothing in there right now that shows me. And you covered this in the movie very well. There's a lot of whistleblowers who are out there that are like, what? I need immunity. I need these things. I need to be protected, and that's not there. How do we get there with the whistleblowers? Because these firsthand witnesses are the ones that are going to move the needle. They just aren't. We haven't had them yet.
No question. Yeah, no question. Sorry about that.
No, I asked. I wanted to know. It was you for a long time. You were not. We couldn't find you on social media. You were going through all this stuff. So it was. I think it was relevant.
And there was one person that did speak out that was getting ripped off to the level I got ripped off. I think I came in first place because I just went on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So all the Joe Rogan money went into the pocket of a billionaire. And, again, you only do that a few times in one's career, right? Where you make a big chunk, you pay everybody off.
Yeah.
And then you have to put money in the coffers to last, because you have new productions, things of that nature. But getting back to your point with whistleblowers, the protections that are given. Look, a number of first-handers have met with people in government, in Senate Armed Service Committee, House Select Committee on Intelligence, behind the scenes, first-handers. I'm told somewhere around a dozen people that work directly with this material. Could be a little more, could be a little less. But they also said that they're terrified for their safety, not just their careers, but their physical safety. And so the mechanisms that have been put in place, witness protection stuff, is not good enough yet.
How do they get around that? Like, because I
think it has to be. So from and I'm trying to figure that one out as well. It has to come from the executive branch. I'm told that if the president of the United States would grant these individuals immunity, they could testify under oath publicly and release all the details that are currently, I guess, national security issues.
But doesn't that then get into the conversation of, well, who's got a better relationship with him? Is it Luna with Trump? Is it Luna and Burchett, or is it Turner? Who's got a better relationship? Because Turner knocks on the door and goes, "Sir, don't release this stuff. Don't let these people speak." And then you get Burchett and Luna going, "We need more information." So who do we know? Who do we know that he's going to listen to, and why he?
And how do we know that these guys? Look, they threaten people. I know that personally because I have talked to witnesses both, in the United States and, I went to the 1997 50th anniversary of Roswell, and I got the distinct opportunity to meet with maybe 12, 15 people that were there at the time, because back then, if you were in your 20s or early 30s, you'd be in your 70s or early 80s, right? So there were people like that, and they said, and I heard this over and over and over, that they were threatened with, they're not going to just be picking your bones out of the desert, they're going to be picking your family's bones out of the desert. Jeez. I had people tell me that, and I've had people in Brazil tell me the same thing. Like they were very, very scared 26 years after the fact for their safety, for their family's safety. People are spooked. I mean, look, you saw that visit.
Yes.
That happened in Scotland.
I knew you. That's for your
1990. I mean, that was just. I mean, those guys weren't there to jazzercise.
No,
right? Scared the shit out of those witnesses.
Yeah. So for people, and we had covered because they they brought that story up, I guess, like a few months ago on Daily Mail or whatever it was, and then and you kind of really dive into it in the new movie. And for those people who, it's the one that happened in 1990, and two guys took this very clear picture. Let me ask you this point blank: do you think that picture is real?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely,
no doubt.
I'd heard about that picture in the late 90s when I read about it in a book that Nick Pope had written. And I was interviewing Nick Pope when he was still at the MOD.
Yeah.
I'd pull him aside and go, Nick, what's the best case you ever? And immediately, boom, he goes, these guys, these hikers were out there and they took these 6 prints. 6?
Yeah.
They were analyzed to death. They were hidden, terrified the witnesses, made them vanish. I interviewed the Royal Air Force press officer, Craig Lindsay, who met with the witnesses, who interviewed the witnesses, who's seen the analysis work done on the photographic evidence, who'd seen the other 5 prints, right?
Yeah.
Was it took 5 or 6, but at least 5, if not 6. The military jet going around the object. So apparently with the other prints that have not been found,
yeah,
you got the object, and then there's a military Harrier jet. They believe it was a Harrier jet going around the object, and the photographs get one here, one here, one here, one here. So this object, this diamond-shaped or disc-shaped object, remains stationary. The other one goes around. There's points of reference on the ground. It was taken with a camera with 35 millimeter prints, the negatives, right? So it's like, and then you've got a military jet scene in there. Military jet guy is MIA. The photographers are MIA, like disappeared for 34 years without a trace.
Yeah, that's a bizarre story. I remember I'm glad you really dove into it, because when we first heard about that one, I said that one
almost too good to be true.
Yeah, it's almost too good to be true.
But again, I've been following that one for 20 years. So the fact that I got to finally hold that picture, and I have to remind people as well, like people are going, oh, well, where's the evidence from Brazil? Where's the photographic evidence? Okay, so I've been learning about that photographic evidence just for a couple of years now. Do you think I'm just going to give up on it?
Right.
I'm actually going back to Brazil next month. Of course, I'm not giving up on it. I just spent the last year and a half with a laser-like focus on making the program. I've got, from my Joe Rogan Experience episode last time on Moment of Contact, I've gotten maybe, 300 emails with potential leads that I've whittled it down to like maybe 11.
Okay.
People that are going to go meet with back in Brazil. Could turn out to be nothing, but you think I'm just going to give up on it? I don't give up on cases. I mean, case in point, I finally, after 20 plus years of hearing about this case in Scotland, got the picture, got my hands on the picture. Thank you, David Clark, and did extensive, interviews regarding that case.
Yeah. Are you going back on Rogan, or you don't know yet?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Fair enough. Okay. So one of the things I got to ask you though, too, because I know that with any movie, no matter what you're making, whether you're making a documentary or a comedy or whatever it is, there's frustrations along the way that come with that, besides the one that you just mentioned. Let's talk about Jason Sands, because there was like rumblings that you had tweeted out, you had somebody that you were talking to, you didn't say who it was, and you were like, this is going to be a big one, this is going to be great. And then I think it was maybe a week later, Jason Sands does a Twitter space and goes out and puts all this information out, and people don't know, and there's like these back and forth. They don't know, why is this guy revealing stuff on a Twitter space? Is he legit? And then people are coming like, he is legit, we don't know what he's doing. And then you hear that like Nolan was frustrated with him, the fact that he came out, and other people frustrated him with that when he came out. When you heard that he did that, did you do what I did with the NASA guy when you slam your head into the door? You're like, what are you doing? Why are you talking now? It's like, what were your thoughts when you heard about that Twitter space thing?
So I unfortunately have no one to blame but myself for that. And what happened is that I periodically put out production stills of progress on the edits and what's happening. And I put out a production still, and off in the distance, if you zoomed in high enough resolution, you see a clipboard, and on that name on the clipboard was J. I think it was a J period SAND, which one of the production crew had written on there. My bad. I have no one to blame but myself. And I posted it and revealed his identity. About, I don't know, half an hour after the post, I get this urgent call, like from Intel guys on Signal. You got to take that down immediately. You just revealed, Jay Sands. I was like, what? and then I didn't realize that it
Oh,
had,
shit.
yeah, that it's my, hey, I got no one to blame but myself. So his name had come out, people had done some digging, and he was sitting on the sidelines quietly for several weeks, watching all the speculation online about him, who he was, getting attacked, yada, yada, yada. And I just think he couldn't help himself. And he just decided to chime in without talking to me about it first. But again, it's my fault. I'm the one that triggered that.
That's fair.
And there's no one to blame but me. Now, did I know that I was going to get a lot of flack for keeping his story in there? Yeah, I knew that. But people hadn't done the level of background checks that I had done. I was meeting with people from both the House Select Committee on Intelligence and Senate Armed Service Committee. And they were like, look, man, I'm sure the guy has PTSD. His bona fides check out. He is who he says he was. He was where he says he was. He has named classified programs. One of the guys even told me I got in trouble just for asking about the name of the program that Mr. Sands gave me. They said he checks out. Now, we have the names of the other people that were on duty. We haven't revealed them in the film, but I have them. We found one of them.
Okay.
We started corresponding with them through Jason Sands. And as soon as brought up the encounter, the guy ghosted us. Oh. So then I reached out to another intel guy and I said, I want to, and this was going on for months. I want to talk to the person, see if you can get any information on this. We had a date, we had a location, we had some names. So we found indirectly through this intel person that I was working with, the person that debriefed all the on-duty officers at the time of the encounter, right? Got a hold of that individual. That individual wouldn't confirm nor deny. It was just a big fat no comment. So, and then these other folks, and then I ended up getting all of his military records, which I have, and then I have all the photographs of him in military uniform, which I'm sure you've seen some of those in the movie. Mm-hmm. And I said, screw it, I'm going to report on this, and hopefully, more people will come forward and say it happened or it didn't happen, or we have additional evidence. I mean, again, we have the video that leaked from 3 days prior. We have the chatter from that encounter, same location, 3 days later, 4 days later. We have the alleged landing and that encounter with that individual.
Right.
And I think it's interesting that he doesn't say like, hey, I saw an alien. He was like, I saw this guy. I thought it was somebody in need of help, military needed medical attention, that kind of thing. So it's hard to uncover additional information on a specific case if you don't know about it. So we're reporting on it, and we're hoping that more information will come out on it.
Yeah, it's a crazy story what he said, because like as he's leading into it, there's the stuff as I'm watching, because I've been following it and him and everything to lead up to it for quite a bit. So when he showed up, I was like, oh, James left them in there, and then I was watching, and I'm like, okay, he's talking about certain programs. I'm pretty sure I can guess where he was stationed. I won't say it if you don't want me to. But
so he had to get Dopser,
yeah,
approval.
Okay,
and that was one of the things actually, because we had his identity masked, but because he got outed because of me, he went through the Dopser process, and the one thing they said he couldn't talk about was that word. Oh, and I had to blur it out.
Okay, so you could beep it to where it's like we will know what it is, but he just can't say it.
I had to beep it out legally. I had to do that.
All right, so I can say it then. So
you can say what you think it might have been. Yes,
I'm gonna say it's pretty. I'm pretty sure it was Roswell, and so he's talking about how it was wherever it was. Let's say it was Roswell. Say it wasn't. Wherever it was, he said that if he had the protection, he'd be able to walk people right in as long as he knew he was protected and going, look, this is where this was. This was this.
You mean Area 51?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, not Roswell. Area 51.
Oh yeah. We had to. I'm not saying that's what he said, but
that's exactly what I meant, because
we had to blurt it out.
Yes, yes. So the Roswell situation, all the generator. But anyway, so he said he would walk people right into it, show him if he had the protection to it, and it was leading up to that story that you just mentioned of the individual that he ran into. Before that, I'm going, okay, all this stuff, this leads into everything here with the program, reverse engineering. This is, everybody here is going to be saying, okay, this guy has some information. Then he goes into that story, And I said, I go, wow, James is ballsy for putting this story in there. And then you followed it up really well, because you go, you know, what are you going to respond to people who are looking at this going, this guy is crazy, right? Because people are going to be absolutely saying that, especially the casual viewer, right?
Of course.
And he's like, you know, of course they're going to say that. What can I do? But you give the example. This is a guy that you talk to. You believe that his story is legit, and if it comes out that it's a legit story, it is. But the other guy was the guy, and you seem to have one of these guys in every one of your documentaries, and I was glad that I saw one. Was the voice? You can't hear the voice, you can't see the face. And there's that one guy in the military who is, at least I thought he was, because he was dressed in the garb. And
he is.
Yeah. So that individual seemed to be someone that was like, eventually I will come forward. Is that accurate?
And behind the scenes, that individual has met with staff members of congressional staff members that are investigating. Yeah. Because he's in a position to know where that 4K footage is.
Right. Well, and I'll tell you, and because
he's seen it.
Okay. So he's seen it. He's talked to people, but like, you know, and then as people like myself are waiting for people like that to come public, right? And you know, we're waiting for the Gary Nolans to come forward, the Carl Nels to come forward, and not just talking at the conferences, which they do, and not talking to individuals like yourself, but it's all seems to be the protection, because when you ask Gary Nolan at the end, he's like, I'm not going to answer that question. And there's put off. I can't answer that question. I felt like I was watching the hearing again at some points, right? I'm like, because you know, there's so much that Hal Puthoff knows. There's so much that dude knows. I think he gave you the most without giving you anything at times.
Yes, I know, right?
There was sometimes
your eyes speak volumes. You know, well, one thing I'd like to say, revisiting Jason Sands, is that Jason Sands just again confirmed that he's willing to testify. He's willing to take a polygraph test publicly. He is willing to reveal the details necessary to validate what he's saying, provided he's given immunity.
Okay.
He can give you all that. Now, so you can criticize him all you want. The guy's got a military record of serving the country. He's willing to testify under oath. He's willing to take a polygraph test publicly. So, you know, I don't think that we should just quickly dismiss an individual with those types of credentials.
If he's like you said before, Grush, if you're going to testify under oath, you know, and you're going to put yourself at risk of finding yourself, if you're going to go to jail if you're lying, then you put that person under oath. It is another one of those head scratchers, as I mentioned in the beginning, my first question to you, with one of the things that Jeremy Corbell had brought up was that that there were supposed to be, there were actual whistleblowers that or firsthand witnesses that were given, that were to this hearing, that wanted to come forward and wanted to testify, and they were told no, and they weren't used, rather, more so than said no. Who's really, is it a Nancy Mace that makes that decision? Is it a Tim Burchett? Like, who's the one that comes together? What group is it? Because it doesn't, you know, it's almost like Lucasfilm. They don't know how to make decisions. It's like, who is making the moves to say, okay, let's get a Jason Sands, let's put him in, let's testify him, let's get him some immunity. I know you mentioned the president has to be one of the ones to do it, but like,
I'm trying to figure this out myself. I mean, I met multiple times with Burchett, and there were certain aspects of our meeting that didn't end up in the movie for obvious reasons. But I understand that he's got the name of the gatekeeper.
Interesting.
So I don't know if you saw the memo, the correspondence between a high-level government official and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Christopher Mellon.
Oh yeah, the one he was holding in his hand.
Yeah, so an unredacted version of that was handed to a number of people.
Okay.
So that has names, right?
Right.
And that's recent, in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So those individuals are all alive.
Mm-hmm.
And that gatekeeper was found, and we have a full name of that gatekeeper. I don't have it because the version that I report on in the film is redacted.
Yeah.
But there's an unredacted version that's been given to many people on the Hill, I'm told, including Burchett.
Okay. So, and it's like, it's all this information that is clearly there. And a question that you asked a lot of times in the film is that to different people is there information out there that would just change people's minds? Yeah, there is. I mean, obviously Hal Puthoff said it. There were a lot of other people who said it. But it's just not out there yet. And one of the other things that I guess at the end of 2023, and correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of 2023, it was yourself, again, Jeremy Corbell, Ross Coldhart, a few other people who said, wait until you see what happens in the beginning of 2024. And then I don't know if that was trying to correspond with the with the UAPDA thing that was ultimately gutted, but there wasn't much that had happened in the beginning of the year. But then Lou's book comes out, things start to happen, the hearing starts to happen. Well, Ross Coldhart came back on not on my show, but came out recently and said, all hell's going to break loose in the beginning of 2025. Do you guys hear certain things that you're so confident at that you're like, no, wait until it happens? Or do you say, no, we can go with this. We know that shit's going to go down starting in 2025.
Well, if you look at, the last 70 plus years of reporting, you've heard like, oh, contact is imminent. This is happening. That's happening. Well, look, if the phenomenon itself wanted to reveal overtly themselves, all they'd have to do is fly over the Macy's Day Parade or
right.
or the next, Super Bowls, and it's game over, right?
Right.
So you have to admit that they too are in on the secrecy, or right? I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've done some pretty fantastic things. If you look at some of the cases, like hovering over the airport in 2000, was that 5 or 6 at O'Hare?
Mm-hmm.
The 1997 Phoenix Lights case, or massive UFO flyover.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people like to talk about that. That was pretty brazen. There's been a number of, landings at the school in Rua, Zimbabwe in 1994. Oh, yeah. The UFO crash obviously is a UFO crash, but there have been some pretty brazen, encounters or cases. But for the most part, whoever they are, they don't seem to want to reveal themselves overtly because, again, hover over the Macy's Day Parade, it's game over, right?
Right.
But they don't do that. So I'm not sure what I said about 2024. It has been exciting. Every year has been exciting for me.
Yeah.
Remember, I've been at this 30 years.
Right.
So for me to even be sitting at a congressional hearing where they're even talking about the existence of the phenomenon is a big deal.
That's what Leslie Kane said the same thing in your doc,
yeah,
right? So much,
yeah. And to hear somebody, an intel guy, testify under oath, let's not, forget that, under oath, that we have a crash retrieval program.
Right.
That in itself is kind of a big deal.
It is. Yeah, it is.
That makes 2 intel folks
right
in the last year.
Mm-hmm. That have come forward and
come out and testified under oath in a public setting.
Right.
And then you have another individual, Kirk McConnell, Senate Armed Service Committee, who's lived his life in the shadows, who just couldn't take it, and he retired in February of this year.
Right.
February, March, and one of the individuals in my film, Intel guy, who's part of the UAP task force, actually was speaking to Kirk McConnell. He's in the trailer. People have seen the phenomenon. Sorry, the program trailer. It's funny because both the phenomenon is TP, and because I'll abbreviate. Hey, let's make sure we get Bubba TP.
Right.
That's the program and the phenomenon. But who participated in the film last minute, and he said that there were a number, and he says it in the trailer as well. It's included in the trailer that there are a number of first-handers. Yeah. High level of credibility, all the credentials that have come forward behind the scenes. It's just a matter of getting the right protective measures, I guess, right, for these whistleblowers in place. And
that is doing it, let's say, the right way, right? So there's also been that not theory, that's not the right word, but the circumstance, if it happens the hard way, if you will, and if other footage drops, and if, please, the name of the gentleman that in the UK that was brought up on the charges by the United States.
Isn't that incredible? Gary McKinnon.
So that story. So
isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. So Gary McKinnon, so for people who don't know, again, was a guy who hacked into
biggest hack in U.S. history.
And was doing it, he says, to find out stuff about the phenomenon. So he said that the things of what he had seen, and then it was
and where he saw it.
Now, if somebody like that puts something out there and a video, or someone who has worked on a program and puts something out there and puts undeniable proof, that also could change the game. And it brings me to, and I don't know,
but here's the one problem with that. Don't get me wrong, boy, wouldn't that be cool? But provenance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it suddenly surfaces, like, give you an example, the Calvine UFO photograph has been out for what, over a year or two? A year, maybe two.
Right.
And people are like, oh, it's a reflection, it's a pond, it's this, it's that. It's like, if you don't know the backstory, then it's like, I don't know about this case. So if something like really compelling, like they've got like, you know, these aliens that have allegedly been interviewed at Area 51.
Right.
Yeah, I've looked at one or two of those over the decades and gone, this is interesting, but there's no provenance. There's no backstory. I don't know who the guy who shot it.
Right.
What's it about? Was it done at Hollywood? Was it done? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So don't get me wrong. That would be really cool. But without like provenance, like,
yeah, you could be, especially today when you can
AI
100%, or special effects, somebody really good with that. But that's why you've seen the footage I'm about to ask you about, and we still keep wondering if he's ever going to release it, the Logan Paul stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like is that ever going to, first of all, two-part question. One, will it ever come out? Two, is it enough of what we're talking about with provenance and everything too? Is it enough? Is that one of the ones going, that was pretty real?
So somebody came to my house who'll remain nameless, maybe about a year ago, and he has the footage as well.
Wow.
And he showed it to me right here. I was sitting right where I'm sitting right now. I watched it, and I was like, oh, this is really degraded. Like, it had lots of dropouts, and it looked like it had been edited. It didn't, I mean, yes, it was kind of what I saw for sure, but it looked like it had been edited. What I saw and what I remember seeing from Chuck Clark, Chuck said to me, your jaw's going to hit the floor when you see this. And guess what? My jaw hit the floor when I saw it.
Yeah.
It was maybe a couple minutes long, maybe 2 minutes, something like that, where they're inside the car and the lights lighting up the dashboard and moving around and they're arguing and then they get out. And I remember either he pans the camera up or he gets out of the car and then the camera goes back on again. And I remember seeing the disc just kind of doing this. It was just kind of doing this like that.
Yeah.
Like it was unstable and it was glowing like an orangey, yellow, red. And that, it was very impressive, very impressive. And what I saw last year, at first I was like, is that the same thing that I remember seeing? But it looked like it had been edited and then it was degraded. You can imagine a VHS tape. You know what VHS does after, getting played over the heads, that half-inch tape. You get all that dropout.
Sure.
Video was notorious for that stuff. So the VHS tape that I saw now, apparently they're going to process it through some new software that can take those digital facts and they can clean up all the noise that had been created, and maybe that will be good. But I remember asking the individual, I think he said that he made a deal with Chuck Clark that he was going to have the footage restored and digitized.
So and actually be released?
I don't know. Okay. But again, what I saw, you don't have the camera operators. Those guys are, I don't know, MIA.
Yeah.
One of them was 19 at the time.
Okay.
I was 26 when I saw it, 27 maybe.
Shit. Okay.
So, and I'm 56 now, so do the math.
Okay.
Right? And so that guy was 19, so he would be
late 40s.
How old would he be?
Late
49?
40s. Yeah, late 40s.
Late 40s. Okay, yeah. So he's probably still around. And the other guy was I think the other guy was 11 years older.
Okay.
So he was 30, he was 19. So he would be what?
So late 50s? Yeah.
Late 50s.
Yeah. So it's still probably, I mean, depending on how well they took care of themselves.
Yeah. Now here, exactly. Yeah. And now here's the real frustrating part is that, we started doing some digging on that case and we found the name of the individual. No, Chuck Clark gave the name of the individual who gave the footage to him.
Okay.
And that was given to a private investigator. Anyway, we found the guy. He had just died.
Oh, shit.
He'd worked at a production house in Los Angeles, and he just died. So then we contacted that individual's son because we were like, his cubbyhole at the office probably has the master because he had a master of it, which is probably, But the son apparently was the last thing his son wanted to be doing was talking about UFO footage when he was mourning the loss of his dad. So it's an ongoing investigation. Logan Paul got threatened of a lawsuit by Chuck Clark. If he released it, he might, I don't know. Logan's like, hey, it's degraded. Yes, it was impressive. He talked about it doing this. That was one aspect of it that really caught Logan's eye, but it was pretty degraded. And what he got was from a camera on his shirt, right?
Right. So who knows?
Anyway,
yeah. Well, it's interesting. But last question I got to ask you before I let you go here, and I'm reminding everybody, because right now you can find the program. It's on Amazon. It's on.
Oh, yeah. So it will be released on the 16th.
Yes.
I'm guessing that'd be the night of the 15th at midnight. I'm guessing.
Okay.
Amazon, iTunes, Apple TV, Vimeo, and I actually have a list on my X platform, which is at James C as in Charles Fox, at James C Fox. And I posted a list of all the various platforms that'll be featuring the program on the 16th of December, 5 days from now.
It's crazy. It's right around the corner. So the last question I'll let you go here too is, you've been investigating this now for over 30 years, correct?
Yes, sir.
What is your assessment of, in your opinion, what do you think these things are? Like, legit, what do you think they are?
It's totally in speculation, informed speculation. I would say all of the above. I think it's probably a little bit of everything. I think it's probably interdimensional, interplanetary, and I think it's also probably here.
Very interesting, James. I can't thank you enough. I'm so excited we finally got a chance to chat.
But I don't know.
But you don't know. I know it's again, you talk to so many people with so many different theories. You probably have a bunch of them. But thank you for joining us here too. Congratulations on the movie, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Bye, James.
Bye.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to have this up a little later on today. I'm going to edit it and I'll put it up.
Awesome, brother.
Thanks, James. So there you go. James Fox and the program. So check that out when it comes out on December 16th. And as James said, and I'm glad that he did say it, because it's the same thing that I would say too, I think this is a great documentary to show people that are trying to get caught up in everything that's been going down, and everything to get from the before the Grush to where we are now, and everything in between. Because I think that if people are caught up with, oh shit, Congress is taking this serious, it's stuff like that. It's stuff like his documentaries that they're not doing on the news, right? And this is like, there's like segments of this thing that you want to see, that you wish that somebody would cover on the news. So it is, and as he mentioned, and I think it's a great way to put it, this is something you send to people going, okay, look, you know that I'm that I am into this, and that I've been paying attention to this. Just watch this and tell me what you think afterwards. You know, it's like, whether you believe all this stuff or not, you can't deny that they're starting to look into it more so than just foo-foo stuff. So I'm glad I had an opportunity to sit here and talk with James Fox today. Put your comments in there. Put your thoughts in there. A little bonus episode for you guys today. So thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.